Hi, I'm Barry. This is Mega City Gaming, and this is not so much an unboxing as a debagging or a decloaking, an unsacking. This is from, let me see, James Hakola from California, or CA, I think that's California, America anyway. And I already opened it because I had no idea what was in it, to be honest, and I couldn't resist. So it's a unbagging, double debagging. Anyway, so I had a look inside, but it's good stuff. Let's have a look. So James Hakola is the brains and the brawn, the man, I think, behind Wargamma. Yeah, Wargamma does resin terrain pieces and stuff like that for all kinds of stuff. Let me see what I've got. So I've taken all the stuff out of the bag. Let's have a look. What do we got? Whoa, look at that. Whoa, big resin dollops, big resin dollopy pieces. Right. Whoa, I can feel the quality of that. Right, as you can see, it is a pool, a crater filled with bubbly goo. Yeah, obviously I'm going to be painting this green like toxic sludge for my Wasteman games. Also useful in Strontium Dog, which is the new shiny I've got recently. So this is awesome, perfect, absolutely perfect. I was thinking about making one. I'd searched on the internet, because if I can buy it, I'd rather not make it, you know what I mean? So I searched all over the internet and I couldn't find what I was looking for. There were similar things, but not quite what I was looking for. Then I saw this eventually, and I thought, wow, this is perfect, absolutely perfect, awesome. Right, so it's got comes with a large one and a couple of other ones as well. Right, let's see how it fared in the mail. Right, nothing broken, nothing snapped off. I thought maybe some of these would snap off, but they're fine. So this is a different size. And then we've got a medium size. Yeah, we've got the Goldilocks size. Yeah. And again, nothing has snapped off. This one's got a little bit of resin thing. We have to cut off the bits at the edge, but that is, you know, you could even snap it off with your fingers, no problem with that. I am very happy about that. And while I was buying these on the internet, I stumbled across right, let's get that out of the way. I stumbled across these little things. Let's get these out of the bag. Come on, public are waiting. So these are like more plasticky, as in not resin, acrylic maybe, I don't even know, but they're like bubbly goo pieces. Imagine they're living gooey slimes. Now slime is a good word. Yeah, that's a good word for it. I can't remember what they're called on the website. So let's move these back a bit. Camera down. There we go. So they're all completely different, the ones I've got anyway. They're more like acrylic-esque. And I don't think any of them are the same. No, they're all completely different, like random possibly. And of course, I'm not quite sure how to do these. One option would be to paint the inside, the underneath, because it's kind of hollow. Paint that like green, or ink it, wash it with a wash over the top green, or wash it inside green. Problem is, if I wash the outside green, it might rub off, because I'll be picking it up and stuff. If I wash the inside green, it's better. Yeah, I think I'll do that. Anyway, I'm gonna do it, and then I'll probably show it on this video, because that's what I do. Also, James has also included with this pack some crystals, because what terrain is complete without crystals? And I think these are clear resin, these ones. Yeah, these look like clear resin. Yeah, these are cool. Definitely very cool. Very sci-fi. Very well made as well. And kind of polyp mushroom type things, yeah? Sci-fi mushrooms. Whoa, look at that. So these are, again, these are resin. Very nice. Just need to trim the bottom off, make it flat. There's a bit of a mould line on that one, but again, you could just, that's very scrapable, very scrapable. These are quite high quality products and original as well. I haven't seen mushrooms quite like this. These are perfect, especially because in Wasteman I've seen some mushroom-esque type models being played with, and the mind behind Wasteman has himself created some mushroomy models. Yeah. Right. Anyway, high quality, nothing busted, no maintenance required with these. Easy to paint, I imagine. I'll be painting these and getting them on the table. Let's do that. So I just ran these under the tap, only the resin pieces, and gave them a little bit of a light brush with a toothbrush, and then I patted them down with a paper towel. They're still a bit wet, and while they're drying off, I'm going to cut these ridges off the mushrooms. This is not part of the model itself, they're just part of the moulding process. So you can use this, any old clippers will do. It's quite brittle stuff, so it's worth kind of facing down when you clip it off, because bits can go flying off, but it's quite easy to clip off. Yeah, so I'm going to do that for all of them. Just clip it off first. Clip, 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 clip. Get most of it off, the majority of it off. Then we can scrape it with the knife or the cutter, box cutter. So like I said, it's quite brittle, so it's not so tough to get off. You do want to be careful if you have any respiratory issues like asthma or I guess bronchitis, or any of these respiratory issues, or severe allergies, then resin is an irritant. It's not toxic, not in the doses that you'll get from just snipping or doing this, but if you are particularly sensitive to with your breathing or your lungs or your throat or eyes and ears or whatever, not ears but eyes and nose, then you might want to wear like a mask or something, or do it outside. Right, so I don't have those issues, so I'm not wearing a mask. So there you go. I may be getting hay fever, which is strange to think that I would start getting hay fever in middle age, but that's quite common in Japan because the pollen is very aggressive. Right, okay, so I've cut the bottom off. As you can see, there's still ridges under there, so I'm going to go in with the either craft knife or hobby knife, or in this case a box cutter, which has been repurposed by Tamiya as a craft knife, but it is a box cutter, mark my words. Tamiya, you're fooling no one Well, you're not fooling me anyway. Right, so I'm cutting the bottom off, scrapey scrape. Be careful, yeah. Don't cut towards yourself. Don't do what I'm doing. Actually, I should probably be cutting away. Set a good example, yeah. So put it on a hard surface and cut downwards. It's pretty easy to scrape off. So yeah, and as long as it's well, because you're not going to see that part anyway. As long as it can stand up, yeah. Give it a bit more of a scrape. I am a little bit OCD, not. It's never been an issue really, kind of. The odd sleepless night about something I forgot to do or wasn't put away properly or something. But anyway, that's it. So anyway, that's it. Bing bong. Right, I'm going to do the other two now. I've just finished the last one. As you can see, there's still bits on there. If there are any big bits, you can just go in and clip them off with your clippers. So done. I'm not going to base these. You can if you want, of course. I'm not going to base them. I prefer them to blend seamlessly into the environment, whatever mat or table I'm using. Right, now these ones, they have a little bit, or one of them does, a little bit of excess bleed around the side. So box cutter, hobby knife, just very easy. It's very thin as well. I could even go and snap it off with my finger, but I'd and also because it's you know, rock. I mean, you can't really screw that up. It's not like it's a nice vehicle or anything like that where the edges are clean cut, machined edges. So you can't really screw rock up because it will break like a rock. So right, that's good enough. Just check there isn't any more on that one. That one's fine. Yeah, it's still a little bit wet. Yeah, just want to get this done while it's wet, while it's drying. Sorry, save time. You can save time too. Yeah. Right, it's cutting off any little bits that might otherwise snap off. There was a little bit on there. It's very minimal, but it is there. So on this one, just a little bit of bleed around the edge. I'm going to cut that off because if I paint over it and it snaps off, which it will do because it's very thin, then there'll be a little bit of unpainted grey showing through. And it will look like a piece of terrain that's not been prepared properly, instead of a freaking awesome toxic pool bubbling away. Right, which it is really good actually. I'm pretty impressed. I hope my painting does it justice. You can be the judge of that in just a moment. Right, let's get the third one. Did I do this one already? I might have done. Yeah. Can't even remember, but I've seen a little bit of excess bleed around the edge. Very minimal. Right. Okay, they're done. Right. Must let them dry. I will let these dry overnight and then prime them. Right, these ones, these clear resin pieces, I'm not going to prime these obviously because I want these to be clear, and these have no no bleed and no mold lines on them whatsoever. I don't know if that's a property of clear resin or the way it's made or what, but they're absolutely perfect. Right, so let's get priming. You know what, I just noticed just as I was putting my stuff away that these mushrooms have some gates at the top, which means where it was the injection, the resin was injected in there. So these need cutting off, which is pretty easy. I'm doing it. This my box cutter is extremely blunt, and yet it's cutting through that very easily. And I've just noticed there's a mould line on that, so do check. Don't do what I do and just say, oh, it's done, and forget about it, because you don't want to go back after you've painted it, or even after you've primed it. It's a bit of a pain because you primed it and then you have to scrape the mould line off and prime it again. You just wasted half a day pretty much. So yeah, make sure the mould line isn't obvious. You don't have to get all of it, you just want to make sure it's not obvious. Unless you're Golden Demon, then you obviously wouldn't be watching this. Right, so I'm going to do the other two and then I'm going to get priming. So I primed the craters matte black, Krylon matte black, basically cheap primer. I didn't prime the underneath, no need to do that. I'm going to be making these into toxic pools, so I want them like bright green. So in order for it to get bright, we have to paint the middle bit, the pool, white first. And this is craft paint from the DIY shop, cheap paint. It can be a bit thick. It's good for terrain and stuff like that, not good for miniatures. And there's not much detail in here, not any fine detail anyway, so I won't lose any detail in there. So let's start with that. So pour a bit out. So like I said, this is cheap. I do have the Games Workshop white, but because of the pots and the way that it just dries out, it's got loads of lumps in it. So because, as you can see around here, it all dries around the edge, and every time I open it, it crumbles and goes inside, and it's really lumpy, and it's a nice paint, but because of the pot, useless, utterly useless. Right, anyway, enough moaning. Wet my brush. I'm using a small flat dry brush, about 1 centimetre wide, but I'm just using it because it's big. Right, we're just going to paint the middle, not the edges. And I'll do this one, and then I'll pause it and do the other two, because you don't need to see me do all three. That is probably beyond tedious. Yeah. Right, you can, as you can see, I haven't painted in the, like, if you miss a bit because you're brushing over the bubbles and there's like black lines where the bubble meets the fluid, that is okay, because it's kind of pre-shading or something like that. Right, so there we go. Make sure there's no obvious brush strokes. Right, there's one. I'm going to do the other two now. Right, they're all painted white and currently drying. This one should be dry, so I'm going to go in and paint Scorpion Green. It's the brightest green I have, aside from mixing up custom colour, but I don't do that. So yeah, it's a GW pot, much to my disgust. Right, and I'm going to go in and paint over this. It should, yeah, that's pretty bright. Right, let's water it down a bit because we don't want brush strokes. Doesn't matter if you get any on the edge, because we're going to paint that. You can paint that like a wasteland brown. That's a nice bright green, isn't it? Yeah, I do like that green actually. GW do nice paints, can't deny that. It's just the pots I have an issue with. They even do like what's it called, airbrush paint in these kind of pots, or more like these. And I can't imagine, I don't have an airbrush, but I can't imagine trying to get paint from the pot into the airbrush without using a dropper bottle. But there you go. You know, GW, huge company. Most people's first gaming experience is 40k. So right, I'm going to do the other two. So I finished with the green, scorpion green, and now I'm going to do the crater edges. I'm going to paint them basically brown with some highlights because it will kind of closely match the mat that I'm using, which is a wasteland mat from gamemat.eu. And this is also the colour that I use, the colour scheme for the bases, a lot of the bases for my miniatures. So I start with dirt spatter, which is basically dark brown. This is Army Painter. Dirt spatter, zombicide range. Any dark brown will do really. I'm using my big brush just because it's a big brush. Right. Yeah. Not gonna get very far with that, am I? So, yeah, because we are going to heavily highlight and shade. So the first coat of brown just has to be dark brown. Doesn't really matter because I use several different ones whenever I'm running low on a certain shade of brown. I switch to a different one. So I'm not butting up to the green just yet because the green's still wet, and I'm going to go in with a smaller brush and do the edge of the green. So I'm just, for the moment, just going over the outer edges, and I'm also not kind of not worried about if there's still black showing through, because, you know, shading, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Hopefully I have enough of this. So because I have a few different kinds of paint, and my favourite is Vallejo. At the moment I'm trying to use up my GW paints because they're drying out anyway, and I detest those pots, as you might have heard me say 4 or 5 times already. And Army Painter paints are okay, but not as good. I think there's not as much pigment in them as Vallejo. So I'm if I've got very similar shades of brown like that, I'm gonna just try and use up this one first. If that runs out, I'll switch to what is this, Leather Brown by Vallejo. Anyway, right, I'm going to finish the edges. Right, now I'm going in with a smaller brush. This is about 3mm wide and it's flat and very cheap. Cheap brush, and I'm going round the edge, going right up to the fluid, because the green is now pretty much dry. Yeah, so can you see that? Can you see it? So I'm going to do that for all three. So I finished cleaning up the edges with the dark brown. Starting to look really good now. So the next stage will be overbrushing the edge of the crater, the rock part, with cork brown, which is a lighter brown, much lighter brown, and this is Vallejo model colour. Yeah, cork brown. It gives it, it brings out the detail, and it also makes it look more like wasteland rock, not desert as such, but you know, cursed earth, irradiated wasteland kind of ground. Right, so give that a good old shake. That's the thing about Vallejo paints, they're really good, but they do need a shake. Right, so I'm using again the same brush as I've done the rest of it with. It's about 1 centimeter brush or something, but anyway, I think this one's dry, so get a bit of paint on there. Not blobs of paint, but kind of like that, and just overbrush. See, it brings out the detail. Kind of overbrush it like that. Yeah, that looks really good. Don't get any on the green. You don't have to go all the way up to the green either. Yeah, that looks massively awesome. Of course, there's another couple of stages we're going to do to the rocks, so they're not going to stay that light. So I'm going to do the other two now. Now we're going to add a wash to the fluid, effulgent. So I'm using, this is literally called Gullene. It's house paint from the DIY shop, very cheap. It's also gloss. I think it's gloss. It's definitely not matte anyway. It's got a glossy finish, and it's cheap. It has a low pigment count, and it's dark green, as you can see. So I'm going to basically water it down to make a wash. So scoop some out. Scoop some out. Right, and then take some water from the water pot, even though the water pot is filthy. Right, let's see how that goes. It doesn't matter because right, how's that? it's better to have it too thin than too thick, as in you want better to have too much water than too little water, because otherwise it will just paint it dark green and it won't bring out the details. Right, there's a bit of dry paint in that, let's get rid of that. Don't want any lumps. Right, let's have a little bit more water in there. Yeah, that should do it. Right, there's another bit of dry paint in there. Why? Maybe my palette wasn't clean. Right, and just to be sure, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash the brush before, because the paint that I scooped out kind of stays in the brush, and even though the wash might be quite dilute, if there's paint still on the brush, it won't be as it'll be too strong, too thick. Right, okay, so we have a nice clean brush, it's still wet, and we have a nice thin solution of wash, and I'm going to go in and wish me luck, because I've never done this before. So there we go. I'm going to wash. Make sure you don't get any brush strokes. There shouldn't be any brush strokes because it's quite thin. If it pools in areas you don't want it to pool, just brush it away. Yeah. You want it, basically you want it to settle in the recesses, so to bring out the details. Like that. Right, and if you have a bit like that, you can get rid of it. Yeah, you don't want it. Right, it's quite runny, so we are getting it pooling in places. There we are. Right, that's pretty good. And if you lay it flat on a flat surface, it won't pool on one edge. Right, so you can see the ripples in the residue effluent. Right, I'm going to do the other two right now. So I've applied wash to all three, and I'm just waiting for it to dry. It's already looking really awesome. So yeah, let's not watch paint dry. So it's nearly dry. I'm not so happy with the way it turned out. It's a bit patchy, but it still looks pretty cool. The bubbles are accented by the shading and stuff like that. So I'm going to leave it like that. It's fine. Now I'm going to add apply some Agrax Earthshade to the rocky bits around the edge, and using a big brush, of course. So take a load out. Don't like these pots at all. Take a load out and then apply it. Don't get any on the green in the middle. Stay to the edge. But it goes on quite nicely. So yeah, it's very easy to apply. So, and because the green bit is pretty much almost dry, I can handle it. I can handle it. Right. Okay. Now I'm going to do the other two. And now I'm waiting for them to dry. If you don't have Agrex Earthshade, you can get like a dark brown colour and dilute it and use that as a wash. That's fine. I just use this because it's easier, more convenient for me. Right, so when that dries, we'll be doing a final highlight. They are dry. They are dry. Time for the final highlight. If you're wondering what these are from Mantic Games Digger Mole thing, the not Skaven digger vehicle. There was several options for the weapon at the front, and these are the spares, and I thought, well, they look really good, so I just gonna have them sticking out the ground as, you know, I don't know, whatever, like Star Wars or Wasteman or Strontium Dog, yeah, power converters, moisture farm, you know, insert techno speak here. Right, I'm shaking up. This is Dark Sand by Vallejo. As you see, it's kind of well, it's a sand, very, it says dark sand, but it's quite a light colour. And so I'm shaking it up, shaky shake, and I'm going to use my GW small flat dry brush, although this is not small, it's like 1 centimetre wide, but it is flat. I can't remember what I used it for before, but it's kind of stiff, so make it a bit flat. I think, oh, that was it, I used it for applying a wash, so it kind of dried. I did clean it obviously, but obviously not enough. Yeah, I might get another one of these. There's going to be a GW shop opening in my neighbourhood. I say my neighbourhood, it's going to be like maybe 25-minute walk or a 5-minute bus ride. So that's good, because the nearest GW to me at the moment is in Tokyo, and although Tokyo itself is a 20-minute train ride, the GW store involves a lot of changing trains and stuff like that. And to be honest, there are way too many people in Tokyo and way too many crazy people, and I just can't deal with it anymore. Right, so I'm going to put a little bit of this on the palette, get my cloth ready. Ally helping me. Right, get my cloth ready. CLOF. I couldn't find my kata knife. Couldn't find it, mate. But that kind of gave me an excuse to say it one more time. I don't know where it is actually. It's quite an important bit of kit, so I'll have to find it. Otherwise, I shall resort to using the kata knife I use for opening letters and shit like that. Opening Amazon boxes and stuff. Literally a box opener. Right, I'm wiping off as much as I can, but still retaining a little bit of pigment on the brush. And you want to, the first application, you want to go very light, because even though you've wiped it off, you never know, there might be residual blobs of paint on there. You definitely don't want to blob paint, not at this stage. Right, so that, it's not so easy to see on camera, but it is definitely picking out the raised areas of this, the rock, the stone. Definitely picking out the raised areas of the stone. Can you see that a bit more? So I'm going to go all the way around with that. I'm going to actually need a bit more paint. Can you see that? Yeah, it's pretty subtle. I can see it, but on the camera it's not such a visible thing. But it really does make a difference. And with tabletop terrain and miniatures, you need things to stand out. You exaggerate a paint scheme. That's what I'm looking for. Exaggerated paint scheme. You want colours that stand out, that clash. You need to dry brush. Although in nature it probably would be a bit darker. On the tabletop, you want it to look natural, but at the same time you need to exaggerate the paint schemes. You want it to stand out more than it would do in nature, but at the same time you want it to look natural. I mean, it's never easy, is it? It's not easy, is it? It's not easy being awesome. There we go. Right, yeah, just go around very waffly. Strike him, Centurion. Very waffly. Yeah, there we go. That's the first one. I'm going to do the other two now. Right, I finished the dry brushing on that, and I can honestly say that these are now done. So what's up? What's up next? What is up next? Tell you what we can do now, because it'll be relatively simple, is these blobs. I've got quite a few of them, and they are such a good idea. Hello, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Alright. Don't know why it's sitting on my lap. It's like 40 degrees. Right. So these are designed so all you have to do is paint underneath, and it will give you kind of like a fluidic effect. And my cat is now standing on my freshly painted miniatures. Right, no, damn it, damn it. Anyway, sorry about that. Sorry about that. I'll just have to leave those there for the minute. So these are designed. They got kind of space underneath where you paint, and then it looks like a fluid because it still retains the plastic on the top. So, oh bloody hell! Here we go. I'll put these back here because they're being sat on. Anyway, I'm probably going to use the same colours, because imagine, you know, pool of toxic fluid and then out creeps bloop, 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 some kind of toxic avenger. Right, so let's try with a small one, yeah, because the thing is, once you've painted it, there ain't any going back. You can't paint over it because you're going to see the reverse side of the paint. You can't undo it. So I'm just going to do a small one. I'm using my cheap brush, wide flat brush, Tamiya number 1, I think. I do wish they would come up with a universal paintbrush system, numbering system. Right. Okay. So I'm just going to paint the underneath of this one, and we'll see how that looks. Shall I go right to the edge? Yes, go right to the edge. On the website they look really good, which is why I picked them up. I only went there to buy craters, toxic craters, and then I ended up buying a whole bunch of other stuff. Yeah, story of my life. Right. How does that look? Looks alright. It looks okay. I might go for a darker. What have we got? Darker green. This one's dried out. I should really throw that away. What's that? Goblin green. Get rid of that. I do have. Here it is. Found it. Mouldy Clothes by Army Painter. And that is. Yeah, it's not the same as Goblin green. Near enough. Let's try that one. I'm not even going to wash my brush, I'll just mix it in. Yeah, it's not taking the paint. Obviously I haven't primed it, so it's not, the paint isn't adhering to it as well as other miniatures and other terrain where you've already primed it. That's not a problem. Right, how's that looking? It's looking better. I'm not going to water it down because it's not adhering so well to the plastic, and it'll adhere even less if I water it down. Right, how's that looking? Not bad, not too bad. Not bad, not bad. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I'll put that upside down. I'll let it dry out, and I might add some more colour to it. I'm reluctant to do the others at the moment because it's not as good as I thought. Anyway, I'm going to let it dry. While I'm waiting for that to dry, it might take some time. I am going to paint the bases of these crystal shards, and I'm going to use the same scheme as I used for the edge of the craters, which is a dark brown, any dark brown, but very dark brown. There's no priming on these because obviously I could, I guess, tape them up and prime them, but even with taping there's seepage and I don't want to get any paint on the crystals. So we'll see how the paint sticks. We'll see how the paint sticks. It might be alright because they're not smooth, so, and I think they're different kind of plastic. These feel like PVC, these feel like resin, but I could be mistaken. I am no expert. Right, I am applying the dark brown. This is actually, what's it? Dirt spatter from Army Painter, but any dark brown will do. Right, yeah, it's not sticking as well as I expected, so we might have to give the dark brown 2 coats. Basically using the dark brown as a primer and an undercoat, so that would, yeah, 2 coats. Yeah, I'll give it 2 coats. I'll give it 2 coats of dark brown. So it looks okay, but it won't look the same as this. I want it to look the same because then it will blend in with the matte and the other miniatures, and it'll all be one big happy post-nuclear family. Yeah. So yesterday, on a different subject, while you're here, while you're listening to me, I played Shadows of Brimstone, the Wild West horror game, and that was actually really fun. I was a bit tired because I foolishly stayed up late the night before, got up early on Saturday morning, but it was fun nevertheless. Played a new character and we actually survived, which isn't so easy, especially with the expansion we were using, which is Cinder, which is like lava. Right, I'm going to have to use a small brush to get in between these crystals. I'll do that in a moment. Just a moment. Just a moment. It's taking a lot longer than I expected because the base of the crystal shards has a lot of texture, and you want to get the paint in all the crevices. You don't want to miss any bits because it'll be obvious. And that's also a good reason to use a cheap brush, because you don't want to use a good brush stabbing paint into crevices. There's a technical word. Stabbing paint into crevices. Because that'll ruin your brush. Although I've been stabbing paint into crevices with this brush for about a year, and it's, yeah, I wouldn't use it for any detail work, but it's fine. So anyway, I'm looking forward to GW opening their store, their new shop down the road from me. Although I don't actually play any GW games. I have some GW miniatures, of course, like everyone else. Don't play any games at the moment. Kind of got sick of GW games. Too many rules. 6 or 7 books on the table. Although it's a slight exaggeration. I think the last time I played it was Kill Team, supposed to be like a very streamlined game. This was the old version of Kill Team. It's supposed to be like streamlined, super fast, and there was literally something like 4 books we had to reference for the game while we were playing the game. Yeah, so stunning miniatures, but anyway, they keep the hobby alive, so good for them. Good for them. Good for you, Games Workshop. And I am liking their new stuff. Not that I've played any of their new stuff, but certainly looks great. Well packaged. Terrain in the box. Often, even their box games generally are much more preferable for me, rather than a whole entire army game or even a skirmish game. Miniatures that rule book and miniatures and all these tape measures and things I've got to remember to bring and stuff, and people that might be into it or might not be into it. Whereas a box game, you just bring it, slap it on the table, self-contained, although of course there are expansions for box games. But anyway, I digress. You slap it on the table and the people learn how to play. Right, I might give that one more coat, just to be sure. Yeah, like I said, I use the small brush to get in between. There it is, in between the crystals. Make sure you go all the way to the bottom. Don't leave any crystal showing. Is my crystal showing? Does my crystal look big in this? Random. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that'll do. So I'm going to do the other one. Yes, it definitely does need another coat because it is semi-transparent still. So I'm going to do the other one right now. So I've done both of these. I'm going to let these dry. While these are drying, I'm going to paint the rest of these green because I think it looks pretty good actually. I'm going to paint the others. I'm going to use molded clothes. I'm not going to use the bright green. I'm going to use the darker shade of green. It looks better with this blobby effect. So I'm simultaneously, while I'm doing this, I'm also priming on the balcony outside a whole load of miniatures for Shadows of Brimstone. Like I said a minute ago, it's a Wild West horror board game, but it uses miniatures. It's basically a dungeon crawler, and it's really good. It's like a role-playing game that does all the thinking for you, and you can just embellish your characters as you see fit. And I really like that because sometimes I like role-playing games and stuff, although it's much more difficult getting people in the same room on a weekly or monthly basis, rather than Shadows of Brimstone. Like yesterday we had a guy just turn up randomly, wanted to join the game. Okay, join the game, just like that. Whereas with a role-playing game, you have to roll characters and the DM has to prepare and all kinds of nonsense. So anyway, Shadows of Brimstone, I recommend it highly. It does come with quite a high price tag. Not as high as that other horror game, Kingdom Death or anything like that, but quite high nevertheless. It is really good. I recommend it. It's one of my favourite games of all time actually, and I know a few other people have started playing it recently too and enjoying it vastly. The only problem is, because it's so good, you get sucked in, and there are so many add-ons and expansions for it, which of course you don't need, but once you get sucked in, you can't control the urge to purchase more and more stuff, which is why I'm right now priming a whole load of stuff, which my latest purchases. So I do like multitasking. I'm just going off on one really, but I do like multitasking. So while I'm doing this, I'm also priming, and every time I pause the video, I go out and, you know, because I prime on the balcony in a cardboard box, lest I get paint on the wall. I can only spray prime from one direction, let it dry, turn the miniatures around. So that's why I have to keep going out. But could be worse. Could be worse. If I didn't have a balcony, I don't know what I'd do. Brush prime? Nope. I used to do that right in the beginning. I used to brush prime stuff, and I didn't realise how time consuming that was until I experimented using spray primer, and then I never went back. So anyway, I'm going to finish the rest of these. You don't have to listen to me waffling on. So I've done all of these. These are definitely going to need another coat underneath. I might go for the second coat with a darker colour, just to give it kind of make it a little bit more visible. Yeah. Anyway, now I'm going to go in and do these one more coat with a dark brown, the same dark brown we used before. Now they're dry. It's all about time management. So while that's drying, I do something else, and while they're drying, I spray prime on the balcony, shadows of brimstone. So the second coat, I'm not going to be too worried about getting all the details. I just really want to cover up the crystalline beneath verse. So the beneath verse, for those that are interested, is a place in the Wasteman universe, or Wasteman is a place in the beneath verse universe. It's pretty much, because in Wasteman you can literally have use any kind of miniature. It's kind of post-apocalyptic sci-fi kind of thing in the far, far future. And to make it kind of more compatible with fantasy, I guess, because although you definitely could use a fantasy miniature, or only fantasy miniatures if you wanted, in Wasteman, the setting itself means there's going to be a lot of people with like ray guns, robots and things like that, and if you're trying to go up against someone with a ray gun, if you've already got an axe, it's not that fair. So basically the same universe but underground, and cut off pretty much from the above ground, and that's why it's called the beneath verse, and it's a whole place that got buried during the apocalypse, and people survived, mutated, they eschew the trappings of modern life like technology, so there's very little ray guns and stuff like that, but they do have magic, or basically mutations, which they call magic. So yeah, it's a fantasy-esque. But anyway, for those that were, for inquiring minds, yeah, if you were curious as to what the beneath verse was, I just thought I'd let you in on that. So I'm just applying a second coat to, and it's looking much better actually. second coat of dark brown to the base of the crystalline shards, and it is looking much better. Right, okay, I'm going to let that dry, let these dry. We'll be back in a minute. So while these and these are drying, I might as well do the mushrooms. So the mushrooms have a tree bark texture on the stem, so I'm going to probably do that brown tree bark colour, maybe a bit lighter than that, and the texture on the top, I'm going to, as I'm a big fan of fly agaric mushrooms, I'm going to do kind of a red colour inside, so the blobs are red, and then between the blobs, the outer coat will be a lighter colour, and we want it to be kind of organic looking. So I'm not going to go for a bright red, I'm going to go for a dark red. This one's quite good, it's Crusted Saw. Crusted Saw. This is by Zombicide, it's dark red basically, and it's by Army Painter. It's for Zombicide and it's by Army Painter. So I'm just going to paint the blobs, basically the inner layer of the mushroom. I'll do all three. I'll do all three while we're waiting. Time management. Yeah. So it's always worth doing, in my opinion, the inner layer and then work your way out. And the same goes for terrain and miniatures alike. Because it's much easier. You see, I'm kind of going over the lines and stuff. It's much easier just blobbing paint in there rather than trying to get it precise, and then you can be more precise with the outer layer. It's much easier. So yeah, it's my opinion. If you have an opinion, let me know. I'm open to suggestions. Yeah. So oh, that's looking good, isn't it? That's looking nice. Looking good, mushroom. Yeah. So a friend of mine utterly detests the fly agaric mushrooms being used in artwork for fantasy and video games. He says they're overused. They're an overused cliche mushroom. They should not be used in terrain or miniatures or basing or anything like that. But I disagree, because having grown up in an area of the world where there were fly agaric mushrooms growing wild, it seems scientifically accurate to have fly agaric mushrooms growing all over the place. Although, to be honest, they weren't that common. People used to pick them and do things with them. Say no more. Say no more. But I do like the colours that the fly agaric mushrooms bring to the table and to the bases of miniatures. Right, I've done one. I'm going to do the other two. You don't have to listen to me waffling on. Actually, I just remembered I made a terrible mistake but I'm going to roll with it anyway. Fly agaric mushrooms are red with white spots, not white with red spots. So, what a mistake at the maker. Anyway, I'm liking this anyway, so we're going to roll with it and we're going to finish the others. Okay, I've done the mushrooms with the red. I'm going to let them dry. While these are drying, I'm going to, let me see, are these dry? Dry enough, right. I'm going to go in with the green, and I'm going to go in with a dark green. This is house paint. It doesn't matter, it's for terrain anyway. So problem is I have cats and there's cat hair. Cat hair gets into the paint when I'm painting, and yeah, anyway. Well, so I'm going to go in with this cheap dark green. I chose this because I wanted to go for Dark Angels green, but this is nearly dried out. I should probably get rid of that as well. Make space on my paint box. Because all my other greens, apart from the one that I used, all the other greens are kind of camouflagey. They're you know, brown, greeny brown colours. So anyway, so I need like a nice primary colour green, if there is such a thing. Not. Yeah, and a colour that I have a lot of. So there we go. I might just grab a load onto the palette. Get a load on the palette. Right. Incidentally, this is the same green I used to do the wash on the Toxic Pools. So I'm going to go in and just paint, just paint, just go over the top. Doesn't matter if I miss any places because there's already a layer of light green in there. Right, so from this side it looks dark green. From this side it looks light green. And it's got a little bit more kind of texture and coverage. So we'll see how that looks with the bigger blobs. My workspace is getting a little bit crowded. The reason is my cat, in his infinite wisdom, has decided to sleep just there, and he just sat on all my miniatures, so that's why I shifted them over here. Not my miniatures, my freshly painted terrain. He just sat on it. Luckily no harm was done, but I did have to move all the terrain onto my painting area. But that is fine, I don't mind. So when I've done this one's a bit bigger, so we can see what kind of effect the paint has. Let's get a bit more paint. Yeah, it's not, the paint isn't sticking very well to the plastic. Maybe I should have primed it, but the risk is with priming, getting primer on the top side, which we really don't want. Right, I'm running out of space. So just bear with me a minute. I just want to get this big one done. Get the big one done, and then I can see. Yeah, if it's not sticking like on this one, because it's house paint, you can just, and it's quite thick, although it doesn't have a high pigment count, the solution is thick, so you can just splooge it on. So that does cover the bits that didn't stick. There we go. That's better. Yeah, that's giving it a lot more life, if that is even possible. Right, I'm going to do the others. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment below. There will be more.